When guitarist Josh Middleton realized that him and the band Architects were on different pages musically, he left the band to refocus on the band that he had created, Sylosis. Josh expresses confidence in creating a special album that is heavier and more varied musically, featuring lyrics commenting on current events and personal anxiety. The new album, A Sign of Things to Come, marks a new era and fresh start for Sylosis. Before joining Architects, did you kind of put Sylosis on hiatus, and why?
Yes, I did. I put the band on hiatus about 5 or 6 months before I joined Architects. Not with that. That wasn't on the horizon at all. I just felt like I'd got myself boxed in musically, and I'd made loads of boundaries, set loads of boundaries with Sylosis of what we could and couldn't do musically. When we did our first record, I was like, right, we're going to do our own thing. We're not going to down tune our guitars. We're going to play in standard tuning, and we're not going to play breakdowns, and we're going to appeal to the more real metal crowd, that kind of thing. But yeah, I just felt like I'd really boxed myself in, and was limited, and wasn't wasn't enjoying the live shows as much. So yeah, that's kind of the full story. Yes, we went on hiatus pretty much after the very last tour we did in 2016. We did a headline tour with Decapitated supporting us in the UK.
Do you plan on actually coming back to Sylosis after that?
Yeah, weirdly enough. So we didn't announce anything to the public that we'd gone on hiatus. Mm-hmm. And I just wanted to kind of figure my head out and take some time away from it, which I'd never done before. And I did slowly start coming around to the idea. I actually started writing for a new band, and I was going to do a new band, and I spoke to Nuclear Blast, sent them some demos, and they were kind of like, why are you doing a new band? This sounds like Sylosis. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't think it did, but I was just writing more freely. So yeah, I kind of just had some time away from it and had this reconnected with it with a fresh perspective and stuff. But at that time, just around that time anyway, I got asked to join Architects, or at least go on tour with them, and I figured just leave Sylosis for a bit and have a bit more time away from it and really work on the record properly and make it better.
After your departure from Architects, did you see Sylosis in a whole new light, now kind of dedicating all your time to your baby, so to speak? Did you have new ideas on what you wanted to now accomplish with this band to kind of take it to the next level?
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously there was Architects and Sylosis exist in two different genres kind of, and it's a different way of writing and different way of, especially playing guitar and writing heavy riffs and stuff. And yeah, that was, I had a lot of ideas going on at that time, and yeah, it was cool to kind of have a lot of time to work on the Sylosis record behind the scenes whilst I was still in Architects, and have yeah, like you say, a fresh perspective on it. And just, it was good to have the hiatus, because it meant I had a time away from it and could reconnect and reevaluate things. But also, luckily for us, it doesn't always happen, but the band actually grew in popularity because we went on hiatus. I think it doesn't always happen, but for us it did, where people just either discovered the band or they just really missed the band. And you always want what you can't get, so it made the demand better when we came back.
And you have a new album coming out in September called A Sign of Things to Come that was produced by you, but you also brought in Scott Atkins for the first time, into Sylosis. Someone else was producing you. So what did Scott kind of bring out in you, and how did it feel with someone else producing you for your band?
Well, yeah, so for that one, we had worked with him on 3 records in the past, but and he was credited as a producer on them, but admittedly it wasn't really producing in the the real sense. He was kind of just recording stuff. We knew what we wanted to do, and like the songs were mostly as they went in the studio with very little input from Scott, or we didn't really actively seek it out because we were just kind of naive kids. But this time round, yeah, I think my time with Architects like opened me up to accepting more input into our music. So this time round, yeah, it was very different. We sent Scott all of the songs that we'd worked on 6 months ahead of going into the studio. And he used to play in a band who was signed to Century Media Records called Stamping Ground. And they were a band in like the mid-90s, early 2000s. So he's come from that background, but what he's really good at is putting his head on like his friends who are just never been in a band. They're just fans of metal when they go to the shows, and like, what does the typical metal fan want to hear? Like what's going to connect with them? And he would always like be on at me about the hooks, even if it was a super heavy song. It was like, where's the bit where, you know, the blinding lights are flashing and everyone's chanting and singing this part that they've heard the first time in the song, and it comes back and like they're singing along, and all this kind of songwriting stuff that I hadn't really considered or maybe thought I was. I never let myself write that kind of stuff, but he really pushed to write music that would connect with people that aren't like musicians and stuff, and like try and bridge the gap between the band and the audience.
You know, I think I read somewhere that your manager was really on you to really bring out more in yourself. So how'd that feel?
Yeah. It was tricky to begin with, because at first my manager was like, you haven't really like reached your potential with like your writing in the last record. He said it just didn't feel like it had enough moments, and I didn't really understand what he meant, but I think he meant like just big memorable sections in songs where the crowd can't wait for those bits of the songs to happen because they're like the big moments. It took me a while to kind of like reassess and think about the songwriting and stuff. And yeah, loads of the stuff that I grew up listening to and loving, like even though it was super heavy, like Pantera or Slipknot and stuff, even if it was heavy, it was still like catchy and there were hooks. Mm-hmm. And that was something that we had maybe lacked. And yeah, our manager was really involved with pre-production as well, and pushing me as a vocalist and as a frontman to really step up my game vocally. And again, like the emphasis was on like connecting with the audience and putting more of myself in there.
Now, you mentioned that you were confident in creating something special with this album. So what is special to you about this album?
So one of the things our manager said that I really feel like we pushed for, and I feel like we've done, is to try and like create like our version of like a classic metal record. Like when you think about an album like the Black Album, where it's just like every song could be a single, every song's had like all the attention it deserves. And we've never worked this hard. We've never like picked apart all the songs and rewritten them time and time again to make the best record possible. I feel like we've always put a lot of effort into our music, and it's not something we've ever rushed, but we really kind of reevaluated with this record, and it was like really important at this point, especially me not being an Architect now, to come back with an album that is like super strong to really like solidify us in the metal world and put our stamp on the genre. So yeah, I do feel confident that we have created something that I'd like to think would be considered a classic metal record in years to come.
Now, the artwork looks to me like the Snake Ouroboros skeleton. So tell us about its personal connection to you and the album.
Yeah, so it kind of ties into the title track, A Sign of Things to Come. I guess the snake in ancient civilizations was usually like a signifying change in society, or like a rebirth. And with everything that's gone on in the world, politically, socially, over the last few years, it does feel like a bit of a, moving into a new era. And for the band as well, it feels like a debut album again. And it's the Ouroboros, but the tail is actually sort of like narrowly evading going into the mouth. So it's not actually, that's like a very small detail that the artist put in there that's really hard to see unless you have the vinyl.
See it,
yeah. But that's, so that was a cool touch. But yeah, it's kind of like the snake. I watched that Graham Hancock ancient, what's it called? Ancient civilization. I can't remember the name of it, but I've watched a lot of stuff recently about like ancient civilizations, and the snake seems to be like this reoccurring thing that they used in their artwork and stuff to signify like a new era.
And that's why you've got a big ass painful tattoo on your back of it?
Yeah. Snakes shed their skin, and like it's a new era. It's a new era of my life, and like I said, it really feels like a debut album again for us. So and we got like a new logo. It's kind of like a new fresh start.
Now, for people who've been following Sylosis, what could you tell them about this album in both a kind of a lyrical sense as well as a musical sense?
I think, musically, we're always going to keep one foot in what we do and what we've done. Like we're definitely not trying to change lanes, but it's definitely quite. There's a lot of new sounds, and we're trying to push forward, and in a lot of ways it's heavier. Like I really wanted to reconnect with like the roots of the band, which is very widely undocumented because we were a band years before we ever released any music. And when we were kids, like you just want to write music that's just like super heavy, super aggressive and intense, and gets that feeling of excitement, makes you want to like trash your bedroom. And I feel with time, the better I got as a songwriter and as a guitarist, the band got a bit more like focused on the finesse of it all, and we kind of lost some of that chaotic energy. So I really wanted to inject more like heaviness and chaos into the music, and for it to feel like genuinely heavy and pissed off. But it is also quite probably our most varied record. There's like more different tempos, a lot more groove in there, and a bit more melodic stuff that we haven't done. Lyrically, it's not. There's no concept. There's no like underlying lyrical themes. I guess obviously the lyrics were written sort of during the pandemic, amidst all of the so much went on, like politically, socially, or things like the environment and climate change and that kind of thing. So it's more kind of just like a commentary on that stuff at times, and just kind of just like the song that the title track, A Sign of Things to Come, is kind of just about the anxiety of what the future may hold and like where we're headed, and just kind of being, I think everyone got like that in the pandemic, kind of just doom scrolling on your phone and just doom and gloom in the news, and for me and a lot of people like who are like have anxiety, that kind of just was amplified during the pandemic. But that's pretty much just the title track. Every song's kind of touches on different things lyrically though.
So again, Sylosis have a new album out on Nuclear Blast called A Sign of Things to Come. And Josh, thank you for being our guest today on After 5.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.